Every time the media sides with the discredited apologists for genocide. Stop making moral outcasts of doctors and teachers for their principled opposition to genocide. Turn your fire instead on MPs, the media, and pro-Israel lobby groups for their pitiless hypocrisy. By Jonathan Cook. British Palestinian doctor Ghassan Abu Sittar was cleared last week by a UK tribunal of misconduct charges related to social media posts that could have seen him removed from medical practice. The case was initiated by UK Lawyers for Israel, UK LFI, a fanatical pro-Israel lobby group that seeks to use abusive legal procedures to intimidate and silence critics of Israel. But more disturbing still, the case was taken up by the General Medical Council, the GMC, the regulatory authority overseeing the medical profession. Had the case been successful, Abu Sittar would have been struck off on the entirely spurious basis that he is anti-Semitic and a supporter of terrorism. Hundreds of patients who depend on his world-renowned reconstructive surgery skills would have been denied treatment from him as a result. The three-person panel of the Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service, which cleared him, dismissed all the allegations. It concluded that the UK LFI and the GMC had cherry-picked and misrepresented two posts on X and an article published in Arabic and failed to provide accurate translations of Abu Sittar's arguments. Ian Comfort, chair of the panel, said the tribunal could find nothing anti-Semitic or that supported terrorism or violence. Afterwards, Abu Sittar correctly described UK LFI's goal as trying to destroy my life. The surgeon has been a focus of the Israel lobby's vilification efforts, in large part because he has been such a prominent and vocal advocate for Palestinians facing genocide in Gaza. He volunteered right at the start of Israel's barbarous assault on the enclave, performing surgery on Palestinians who had been maimed by US-supplied bombs dropped by Israel. He was among the first to tell the world that what we were witnessing was a genocide. His testimony has been shared with the International Criminal Court, which has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for crimes against humanity. A recent film, A State of Passion, documents Abu Sittar's extraordinary work. It's linked here. The attacks on Abu Sittar began almost immediately. By April 2024, Germany had issued a Schengen-wide travel ban, preventing him from entering most European countries to attend conferences and offer his eyewitness testimony of what was happening in Gaza. The German authorities justified the ban on the grounds that his statements, accurately pointing out that Israel was attacking hospitals and committing genocide, threatened public order. Human Rights Watch and legal groups condemned these moves as an attempt to silence a witness to the genocide. After a protracted legal struggle, the German courts overturned what was clearly a politically inspired ban. There are several points to make about the latest example of pro-Israel apologists, in this case UK LFI, and the British establishment, in this case the GMC, trying to crush opposition to Israel's apartheid rule over Palestinians in general and its genocide of Palestinians in Gaza in particular. Number 1. UK Lawyers for Israel, the group that initiated the case against Abu Sittar, is not a disinterested party, and it is not, as is claimed, seeking to tackle anti-Semitism through legal actions. Remember, it was the UK LFI that pressured a London hospital in February 2023 to take down plates painted by children in Gaza that were being displayed in a corridor. The group claimed the artwork would be offensive to Jewish patients. If the pressure campaign achieved anything, it was actually to stoke anti-Semitism by creating the false impression that Jews, rather than fanatical apologists for Israel like UK LFI, were opposed to Palestinian children's artwork being seen. Again, it was UK Lawyers for Israel that sent threatening legal letters to organisations around the country planning to stage events in solidarity with Palestinians, including a film festival, a kite-making workshop and a music concert, even when there was precisely no evidence that any of these events were in breach of the law. In several cases, organisers cancelled their events out of fear of the legal repercussions. Extraordinarily, UK LFI enjoys charitable status in Britain, despite being not only a nakedly political organisation, but one furthering the aims of a foreign state. With the height of chutzpah, The lobby group has repeatedly reported other charities to the Charity Commission, including the Citizens Advice Bureau, War on Want and Medical Aid for Palestinians, and demanded that their charitable status be revoked, supposedly for engaging in political activity. Belatedly, the Charity Commission and the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the SRA, have begun investigations into UK LFI. A complaint to the SRA argues that the pro-Israel lobby group is engaged in intimidation dressed up as law, something the Abu Sitar ruling confirms once again. Don't expect any action from either regulatory body, even though these should be open and shut cases against the UK LFI. As well as hounding charities and vilifying Palestinian solidarity activism, the group justifies Israeli war crimes and has invited to the UK a far-right Israeli group, Regavim, that uses lawfare in Israel to silence opposition to illegal expansion of Jewish settlements in occupied Palestinian territory and the expulsion of Palestinians. The UK LFI barely hides the fact that it is an extremist pro-Israel advocacy group that wishes to weaponise phony anti-Semitism allegations to intimidate and silence Palestinians and solidarity activists. Its lawyers need to be investigated for their role in facilitating genocide. 2. UK lawyers for Israel and other pro-Israel lobby groups are clearly exposing the fact that the British legal system is ripe for abuse by those with deep pockets. Their tactic of choice is what is known in the US as a strategic lawsuit against public participation, or SLAPP, SLAP. The purpose is not to win the case, usually such cases are unwinnable, but to create a hostile legal environment, burdening the accused with having to mount a time-consuming and expensive legal defence. Groups with shadowy backers are well positioned to bring these cases because cost to them is no object. The UK has done far too little to stop slaps. Abu Sitar is the latest example of someone having to deal with one of these pro-Israel slaps. Only last month, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, another pro-Israel lobby group dedicated to weaponising anti-Semitism, had a private prosecution contemptuously thrown out of court. Judge Michael Snow called the CAA's anti-Semitism case against comedian Reginald D. Hunter abusive and vexatious. He added that the pro-Israel lobby group had intentionally withheld information to mislead the court. In a further humiliation, he instructed the group to append his ruling to any future legal applications it makes, presumably to warn judges in advance that it is a bad faith actor. The ever more repressive climate in the UK may have led the CAA to assume that there are no limits on what can be done to silence critics of Israel. We're not quite there yet. However, it was notable that the British press mostly ignored the ruling, even though it lifted a lid on the ugly, lawfare manoeuvrings of the Israel lobby. By contrast, the media lost no time whipping up a moral panic at a decision last month by the police quietly to drop an investigation into punk band Bob Vylan over it leading a chant at Glastonbury of "Death, death to the IDF," a reference to Israel's genocidal army in Gaza. The media was filled with dire warnings of a supposed anti-Semitism crisis provoked by this chant against genocide. And who did the media choose to raise the alarm? Step forward the usual pro-Israel lobby groups, including the CAA, just moments after it had been thoroughly discredited by a district court judge. 3. This hostile legal environment only works because it's backed by the British establishment. The involvement of the General Medical Council in the case against Abu Sitar is further proof that professional regulatory authorities are either willfully colluding in these malicious slaps or are grossly incompetent in weighing the evidence presented to them by thoroughly untrustworthy lawfare groups such as UK Lawyers for Israel. The GMC did not bring the case against Abu Sitar because it was deserved. It advanced a political cause because, like UK LFI, it prioritises support for Israel. Meanwhile, media outlets such as the BBC and The Guardian continue to treat malicious lobby groups such as UK Lawyers for Israel and the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism as credible sources for anti-Semitism claims, even though they've been repeatedly discredited by their own legal actions. The Guardian quotes a spokesperson for UK Lawyers for Israel stating, in flagrant denial of the tribunal ruling, that, quote, "It is shocking that the tribunal has found it acceptable for doctors to commemorate acts of violence and pay tribute to terrorists." The paper is colluding in the UK LFI's dissembling. The court did not find it acceptable to pay tribute to terrorists. It found UK Lawyers for Israel and the GMC to be peddling disinformation against a British citizen in the service of a foreign state. That is the real story, once again utterly missing from the coverage. Moreover, why does The Guardian fail to provide context in its report of the Abu Sitar ruling that the UK LFI is currently under investigation for using precisely the kind of lawfare tactics for which it has just been rebuked by the Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service? Is that not highly relevant? This is very much a pattern with the media. This week, the papers leapt on another supposed anti-Semitism story. They reported that a visit to a British school by a local Jewish MP, Damien Egan, was cancelled last September because of pro-Palestinian sentiment among teachers and parents. The articles all falsely suggested that Egan's cancelled visit was evidence of anti-Semitic pressure from pro-Palestinian groups. The implication, an entirely racist and insightful one, is that being pro-Palestinian or even anti-genocide equates to discriminating against Jews. In fact, the visit was cancelled because of deep community disquiet about Egan, who is vice chair of Labour Friends of Israel and has been on an Israeli-sponsored trip to Israel during the genocide and takes money from pro-Israel lobbyists like Sir Trevor Chin. Understandably, parents and teachers do not want an MP, so openly supportive of Israel, while it's committing a genocide, to be lecturing their children on, quote, democratic values. Blocking Egan from having an influence on impressionable young minds is neither anti-Semitic nor an assault on free speech, any more than it would be for a school to bar Andrew Tate from giving its pupils a sex education talk. It is the right thing to do for a school that cares about its own professed values of community and respect. Keir Starmer's government and British media commentators may be inured to their own deep-seated hypocrisy, but there are plenty of sections of the British populace that wish to take a stand for a basic moral code and who think democracies should not be supporting genocide. It is time we stop making moral outcasts of doctors and teachers for their principles and compassion and started turning our fire instead of MP. It is time we stopped making moral outcasts of doctors and teachers for their principles and compassion and started turning our fire instead on MPs, the establishment media, bodies like the GMC and pro-Israel lobby groups like UK Lawyers for Israel that are working so hard to destroy what little remains of liberal democratic values.